And welcome into a special crossover episode of Tiger Territory and Crush Territory. I'm Cody Stavenhagen with me as always. And joining us, Chandler _ Rome. Covers the Astros for The Athletic and, of course, is the host of Crush City here on Foul Territory. What's up, guys? How we doing?
What's up, Kieran? How are you? And Cody, I guess. How are you?
I'm doing good. We are getting ready for the Tigers to play the Astros, which if you're listening to this, I assume you already know, but a lot of connections. So we're about to break it down.
Have the Tigers and the Astros played recently? Has that been
I think there was a playoff series. I think the Tigers president of baseball operations went out of his way to mention it when they didn't get Alex Bregman, that they just beat a team that had Alex Bregman. Not that they were salty at all.
That's a good callback, Cody, because when Scott said that, I was like, it was kind of like Scott Harris, for the Crush City listeners, president of baseball operations for the Tigers, goes out of his way to just not show personality. Mm-hmm. And that was clearly him, kind of putting a little bit of the competitive cap on. And so longtime listeners and viewers of Scott Harris press conferences, God bless all of you that do that. Where I think it kind of stood out a little bit. It was like going against the company line and was rather petty, if we're being honest. So so Chandler, maybe we should just start right there. That's how the Tigers reacted to, losing out on the Bregman sweepstakes. Obviously the timeline was a lot different for the Astros, but how did the organization handle that aspect of the offseason?
Well, I mean, they've been through it so many times before, right? They let Carlos Correa walk. They let George Springer walk. They let Garrett Cole walk. They let Cole wasn't homegrown, but they let all these homegrown superstars walk. And I think anyone with a brain went into last offseason understanding that the Astros weren't going to bring Alex Bregman back. It would have taken something that Jim Crane, the owner, just doesn't do. It would have taken the sort of contract, the sort of massive average annual value that he has been reluctant to give. The weird thing is the contract Bregman ended up getting is more suitable and more amenable to things that the Astros have done. They are okay with doing the short-term big AAV deals. But Jim Crane even said this on opening day, they never changed their offer. They offered him 6 years for $156 million at the beginning of the offseason, and they never budged. And to me, that's kind of confounding, just given, especially if Scott Boras made it known that Alex Bregman would take a shorter term deal with a huge AAV. I'm not sure why they didn't, alter their offer. But then again, at that point when Bregman signed, they had Christian Walker on the roster. They had Isaac Paredes on the roster. It wouldn't have, there wasn't a fit for him, but Alex Bregman's a guy that you make a fit for. They would have made Isaac Paredes go play second, which would have been a hilarious disaster. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't a ton of shock. There wasn't a ton of petty, oh my goodness, I can't, they've just been through this so many times that I think they were just kind of all right, who's next? Next man up. Let's do it again.
You think he's going to opt out? Cody and I have debated this. You think?
I mean, that sort of contract, it kind of conditions itself to opting out. I honestly think he may sign an extension with the Red Sox. Obviously, I don't think it happens. I don't think it happens in season, but I think he really likes it there. I know he and Alex Cora get along very well, and then I mean, probably the deciding factor. You look at the ballpark. I mean, I've already the few home runs I've seen. I've gone look up on Statcast. It's been out in 3 of 30 ballparks: Daikin Park, Wrigley Field, and Fenway Park. I wonder why.
Chandler, he said the ballpark wasn't a factor in his decision.
Okay, all right, sure. Yeah, but I think, I mean, he'd be, if he keeps this up. I mean, he's had an incredible start to his season, which is not what you can say normally about Alex Bregman. He's a chronically slow starter. So to see him have the start that he's had, if he keeps that up, it's a no-brainer that he's going to opt out, and he'll probably get the deal next offseason that he thought he was going to get this offseason, or that he could have had from the Tigers.
Oddly enough, the Tigers aren't missing Alex Bregman that much right now. Now he's hitting .319 with 5 home runs. He'd still look pretty nice in this lineup. He'd probably make you feel a little bit better about the sustainability, to use the S word that's popular or not popular on our podcast, of the Tigers' success. But Yeah, right now they don't need him. When you have Zach McKinstry and Javy Baez playing all over the diamond, why would you want to commit 6 years and 181 million to the guy in his 30s, right?
We can talk about Bregman all we want, but is this are we going to corner the market this week on infielders playing the outfield between Javy and center,
100%,
Altuve and left, and then Cam Smith, who's a third baseman, playing right field for them? Like there's a lot of cross pollination here, a lot of just changing positions for the hell of it.
So since you brought it up, for our Tigers listeners, how does Jose Altuve look in the outfield?
So he looks fine. I mean, he's not going to win a Gold Glove. He's probably not even going to be average. The whole reason the Astros did this was to get him away from most of the action. Like, they're well aware that he's going to get very few balls hit to him in left field, especially with a rotation that at the top has Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown, both of whom get a ton of ground balls. They know that they can hide him out there. I don't have his chances in front of me, but for a while there, he was like bottom third in the league in left field chances. So they're okay with the fact that they can just kind of put him out there. He can run around. Like, he's athletic enough. He's about to turn 35, but he's athletic enough. Like, he runs balls down in the gap okay. He's got good instincts. He's got good awareness. All of his troubles have honestly been him getting in his own head, because like, he doesn't have a good throwing arm. He has one of the weakest arms on the infield last year and the past couple of years. His arm is not good, and teams are running on him a ton. Christian Vasquez took an extra base on him in Minnesota to start the season. So he knows that his arm is not good. The Astros are doing a lot to help mitigate that. Jeremy Pena, the shortstop, is the cutoff man. They're positioning him a lot deeper, so Altuve's throws aren't as long and Pena can get the ball in his hands quicker. But the gaffes that you've seen him make are as he's like trying to take the ball out of his glove to throw. He's rushing the process. He thinks he's got to be so perfect and get it out so quick that instead of the two you saw in spring training that went viral were him dropping a fly ball with a runner on third base and less than 2 outs, that he knew the runner was going to tag and he had it in his head, I got to get this ball out and I got to go. In Minnesota, coincidentally, he dropped a ball when it wasn't even it was a fly ball that he caught. But again, there was a runner that was going to take an extra base on him. He went to do the glove to hand transfer and just dropped the ball. That's been the big, like, he's catching all the routine fly balls hit to him. He can run down some stuff in the gap. He's more athletic than you think when you look at him. But he's not going to win a Gold Glove out there. But the whole point was they got him out of the middle of the action. And Cody, you remember this, like, the thing that set up the inning that won the Tigers that wild card series, like, Ryan Presley to start that 8th inning got a routine ground ball, just kind of up the middle that an average second baseman gets to. Jose Altuve couldn't get to it. He didn't have much range. It sneaks through. And then, as we saw, kind of all hell broke loose. And that was, I'm not going to say that was the tipping point. That's why they did it. They've been thinking about doing this for a couple of years, but it's kind of accentuates kind of how in the middle of everything he was at second base. And they didn't want that anymore.
What about his attitude about it?
Oh, he loves it. This is as energized as I have seen him. I've covered him for 8 years. This is as energized as I've ever seen him. Spring training, like, he was giddy. Like, he was first couple days he was out there, like, he would lead like the outfielders back from drills, and he'd go, oh, outfielders coming through. And like, he's like, it's re-energized him, I think, for 2 reasons. One, because he wants to prove people wrong. Like, he understands that there is a lot of skepticism out there of, can he do this? Like, is this the right move? And then also, like, he doesn't want to embarrass himself either. So he's going to go out there and work his tail off. Like, this is as engaged and as diligent as I've seen him doing really anything since I've started covering him. And I think that has a little bit of hand in why his second base metrics declined so much, because let's face it, like, I mean, I don't know if Miguel Cabrera thought this way, but like, veteran players that do the same thing for so long, like Altuve was going to 15 spring trainings and taking ground balls at second base. And like, it becomes monotonous. It becomes like, it's devoid of any like intrigue or joy. And I think this giving him something new to do definitely re-energizes. He's all in on this and he loves
All right, I'll ask Cody the Javier Baez aspect of this after a word from our sponsors.
Take me out to my TV on FanDuel Sports Network. Yeah. Watch me some dingers and RBIs. I'm just glad they have my local team live for its root for the Tigers on FanDuel Sports Network. Tigers games, announcers, and more Tigers games. Get on Hinch and they have the Tigers. Stream now.
So, Crush City people, that's our life right now. That's the glorious tune that we got, and it will be in your head now, like it's been in Cody and I's head for the better part of a month. Great deal though, not against it, but it's a catchy tune. That's how you know they did a good job. Cody, he talked about Altuve's enthusiasm. That's the same thing with Javier Baez, is it not?
That sounded so familiar. It was kind of crazy. Chandler said the most engaged I've seen Jose Altuve. This is easily the most engaged we've seen Javi Baez. We've talked about it a little bit before, but over the past week, we've seen him a lot more in center field, and he's looked kind of natural. Like, I think he's looked as good, if not better, than our guy Ryan Kreidler. He's having fun. He's still being productive at the plate. In reality, he's not hit for any power. He doesn't have a home run yet. He's probably not going to be valuable in terms of WAR unless the power picks up. But just seeing him contribute, he's still continuing to chase at the lowest rate of his entire career. He's doing those Javi things that, when the Tigers signed him, he was kind of known for. Tagging up to second on a fly ball to right field. Finding ways to get the extra base, like just doing kind of creative things, having a ton of fun. This is a more engaged version of Javier Baez. I don't know if that will continue, but I think playing different positions has been a big part of it. I think maybe the impact of Gleyber Torres, who he's close with, has helped. And I think just a certain level of maybe acceptance that, he's not a superstar anymore. So you can either go one way, you can sit there and be miserable, or you can find a way to help the team win. I think Javier Baez likes winning a lot, and right now the Tigers are 18-10. They have the best record in the American League. That probably does not hurt the level of engagement coming from Javi right now.
Yeah, he had himself a good weekend too. Several key hits, RBI, and all that stuff. So it is one of the things that we've always said, Chandler, is that like with the Javier Baez aspect, is that at a certain point you just gotta have to forget the contract, forget the years, forget the money, and just kind of reset what your expectations are, or like how you feel. Because if you're just gonna go based on that 6 for 180 that he signed, like you're just always gonna be miserable. But if you can kind of focus on like these things that he's doing and like his like the intangible stuff that he brings, you find yourself a lot better suited to deal with like what is obviously a disappointment, dollars to production. I don't know if there's anything like that on the Astros over the past couple of years that you can relate to, but that's our message in regards to the Javi aspect on the Tigers.
I mean, the Astros had Jose Abreu on their team for a year and a half. That didn't work out near as well as the Javi Baez. It seems like they've at least got Javi to a place where he can contribute some value. Like he does things other than hit. Like he can play deep. Like he's still a really good short. He still grades out excellent at shortstop, right? Like even though he's in center field.
It's actually been slightly negative, but
it's
one
of
those things where the eye test is still pretty good.
Yeah, highlight.
Like the thing with Jose Abreu, like Jose Abreu was signed to hit. And he couldn't do that. And so once that he couldn't do that, they released him with a year and a half and almost $30 million left on his deal. So, but yeah, like I think it is, and that speaks well to AJ Hinch too, finding ways to extract value out of a player that is very clearly not the player that they signed, is very clearly not, this has not gone the way that they envisioned, but it's a credit to AJ for like keeping like, I presume Javi is not a clubhouse cancer. I presume he's a positive, at least somewhat of a positive influence. Like that takes a lot, and it takes a lot to keep a guy like that engaged. A guy that could, because again, he's got $180 million in his back pocket. He could very easily just disengage and not want to be a part of anything. And that's a credit to him. It's a credit to AJ, and it's a credit to a lot of different people for finding ways that he can contribute, even if he's not the Javi Baez of 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about AJ Hinch a little more in a minute, but I want to go back. Did you say there was $30+ million on Abreu's contract?
Yeah, so he signed. It was 3 years, $58.5 million, and he got released about 2 months into the second year of the deal. So right about 30
So
minutes.
there's still $73 million on the Javy deal, but there's a pitcher in Kenta Maeda only making $10 million, and who's pitching about once a week right now that the Tigers are clinging on to. So there is some precedent. We talked about there's not a lot of precedent for teams eating money, but if you want an example, Jose Abreu is a pretty good one.
Yeah, that did not go well. They're paying right now. They are paying Jose Abreu $19.5 million not to play first base, and they are paying Christian Walker $20 million to play first base. Would you like to guess Christian Walker's OPS at the moment?
I got it in front of me, so I won't.
Try 600. He has a 600 OPS.
Oh,
he's hitting 189 with 34 strikeouts, and he's hit cleanup and. They play 27 games. He's hit cleanup in about 20 of them. So they've got a lot of money and a lot of first basemen that aren't doing anything for them.
I definitely didn't want the Tigers to sign Christian Walker. Couldn't have been me. I don't know.
Take your claim on it all off season, leading into the off season. Just didn't have it.
Why would you do that when you have Spencer Torkelson? That's what I said all winter. Right?
Big torque guy, Cody. Well, another connection that these two teams have is, and we briefly mentioned him in regards to the moves around the Bregman decision, and that was Isaac Paredes, who was a very well-liked prospect in the Tigers system coming up. And Cody, would you say he was like rushed a little bit there at the end? He makes his debut in the COVID year, and he's a guy that at the time was kind of like without a position. You know, like we were having conversations, Chandler. It's like you mentioned him at second base. Like we were having conversations about AJ Hinch being like, why can't he play second base until he shows us that he can't play second base? You know, all of us kind of knowing at the time that wasn't necessarily the most realistic thing. He goes in a 2022 trade to Tampa Bay for Austin Meadows, and that obviously did not work out for the Tigers for mainly off the field reasons with Austin. He went through his mental health situation there. And by all accounts, Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, seems like he's doing well. So that's great. But the baseball trade was a lopsided one in favor of the Rays. And now a couple stops later, Isaac is now a member of the Astros. So what's the Isaac Paredes experience like right now, Chandler?
Well, it's important to know that the Astros have been trying to get Isaac Paredes on their team for about a year now. They were after him very hard at the trade deadline last year when he ended up going from the Rays to the Cubs. They tried very hard to get him. He would have played first base in that situation because the Astros still had Alex Bregman. Jose Abreu was on a beach somewhere. So Isaac Paredes would have played first. But the reason they want him is pretty obvious. He pulls the ball more than any qualified hitter in baseball. The Astros have a very short porch in left field at Daikin Park, the Crawford boxes, and Isaac Paredes is going to hit a lot of home runs into there. I think he's hit 4 home runs this season, and every single one of them has been pulled into the Crawford boxes. He is perfect for the ballpark. But beyond that, there's 2 other things. There's one main other thing that they wanted him for, and you guys saw it watching him play there. He takes one hell of an at bat, man. Like he sees so many pitches. His strike zone judgment is so good. The fact that and that's one thing the Astros didn't have last year. Like they saw the fewest pitches per plate appearance of any team in baseball last year. They chased more than any team in baseball. They swung more than any team in baseball last year. So they went into this offseason and they wanted guys like him. And Christian Walker fits into that category too. He's not near as prolific at it as Paredes, but both of them see a lot of pitches. Both of them don't strike out a ton. Both of them have great strike zone judgment, swing at strikes, don't swing at balls, things like that. So that's what they really, really coveted in Isaac Paredes. And I mean, we saw it in the first series against the Mets, 3-game series. He saw 65 pitches in 12 plate appearances, and everyone in the Astros clubhouse was just like mouth agape. Like I can't really watch that. And I was like, yeah, me neither, because I watched you guys play last year, and it was, if you guys saw 65 pitches in like 7 innings, it was a lot. And he saw 65 pitches in 12 plate appearances. The interesting thing is he's been better at third base than I thought he would be. Like he's not Bregman. Obviously, no one's Bregman. Like he's not going to be that. He's not going to win a Gold Glove. But Tony Perez-Chica, who is the Astros' new third base coach, used to be with the D-backs for a while. He's their new infield instructor. He's really worked with Paredes on listening to him talk. It sounds like, and I haven't gone back and dissected all of Isaac Paredes' infield videos, but it sounds like in the past when he would go for balls, his arms would kind of be out. Like there would be a lot of like extraneous movements, like unneeded movement, and it would limit his range. And they've got him now compact as he takes his first step, and the range is better. Like, look, it's not great. Isaac Paredes is not range is not the first thing I would say when I start talking about him, but it's been better than I thought. And it's pleasantly surprised a lot of people all around, honestly. He has been they knew what they were getting in him, but I think he's exceeded a lot of their expectations with some of the stuff that maybe they thought he would, fall short of or subs to do some work on.
All right, we'll talk about the differences between the last time these two teams met and this week after a word from our sponsors.
Todd Father, I love the way that modern technology has changed the way that we buy, sell, trade cards, even rip packs. They're called slab packs, and they're on Arena Club. No more shuffling through everything. The common cards are all over the place. Stuff's getting folded out and all messed up. Arena Club keeps it nice and tight in your digital showroom. And then when you want that card and you want to show it off, what do? You just let Arena Club know.
Let them know and grab it and take it with you. Show it off online. I think this is huge just because the fact that you talked about cutting the corners. You want to get a card that doesn't break or doesn't have a problem with it, go right to Arena Club. They have everything you need. Easy money right there for really, really good, exceptional cards.
After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your vault for safekeeping or trading and selling. Right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/Val and use code FAL. That's arenaclub.com/Val, code FAL for 20% off your.
All right,
I just pulled up. Hold on. I just pulled up Isaac Paredes' spray chart from 2020 and 2021. Sometimes you wonder, like, did the Tigers give up on him a little too soon? I mean, obviously the trade for Meadows kind of made sense. I think on a different timeline, if the front office wasn't under pressure, if Al Avila wasn't under pressure to keep his job, they probably don't make that move. But that's the circumstance it was. Anyway, he had 2 home runs and like 139 plate appearances. You just put it the overlay on Daikin Park, and he would have had like 7. So everything maybe could have been different if he weren't playing in Comerica. But remember, there's a narrative like, does he just have warning track power? Like, is he just not strong enough? He's not in the right ballpark.
Alex Bregman agrees.
Alex Bregman loves Comerica Park. Thinks it's great hitting
it's
environment.
very see himself playing there. Absolutely.
He thinks it's super great.
All right, so we were talking about like what we were going to talk about on this episode prior to pressing record, and Chandler said, "Well, let's talk about the team's difference." And I immediately had an anecdote from when I was at the Wild Card Series last year, and it'll be quick, a couple minutes. But I was in the gift shop, trying to get some souvenirs. One's behind me, that hat right there, for the Wild Card Series, and there's this kid. Keep in mind, these are day games. This guy is missing school. This kid comes up to me. He's probably like 12 years old. And he's like, you're going to lose, right? And I was like, I'm obviously not going to like get in like a smack talk, thing with like a 12-year-old. But like, I was like, oh yeah, you think so? He's like, yeah, all you guys got is school bowl. He went yesterday, so you got nothing. I was like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. You that confidence? Oh yeah, very confident. I was like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. And, went on my merry way. Well, the difference is that kid cannot say that now because the Tigers starting rotation, like the whole pitching chaos thing is not a thing right now. The Tigers starting rotation leads the American League in ERA with a cool 2.89. So the difference is that the Astros are not going to see one Tarek Skubal, but there is no reprieve in the Tigers starting rotation as currently constructed with Flaherty and Job and Mize and Reese Olson. Like that. You're up against it every single time you come against the Tigers. Whereas last year, you just kind of, the chaos thing was something you had to deal with. Now you got to deal with like a top-notch rotation, one of the best in baseball, if not the best.
Yeah, the Tigers are the only team right now with 4 starters with sub-3 ERAs. The Astros are going to dodge Skubal, who pitched Sunday and was pretty dominant, but they'll see Jack Flaherty, they'll see Reese Olson, And if you're an Astros fan, I think it's going to be fun to watch Jackson Jobe, whether you win or lose. Jobe's got some pretty electric stuff. One of those guys, just worth buying the ticket to go watch, I think.
And the lineup that they face has the 5th lowest OPS in baseball. If there's one thing that is just frustrating the ever-living hell out of Astros fans, is that they can't hit right now. It's been a tough watch for their line. And the interesting thing is, the at-bats look so much better. Like everything we just talked about how they chased too much last year, they swung too much, they didn't see a lot of pitches. Like they have improved in all of those areas. Like if you watch them day in and day out, their at-bats are a lot better. They're just not getting results. They're not getting any production. They entered today as one of 3 teams without 20 home runs and hit already. Jordan Alvarez did hit a home run today to give them 20 in their 27th game of the year. Christian Walker, as we just talked about, has not been good. Yainer Diaz has a 499 OPS at the moment. That is not a typo. 499 OPS. Jordan Alvarez it's been a slow start for him, but part of that is because he's had Christian Walker and Yainer Diaz hitting behind him most of the time, and no one's going to give Jordan Alvarez any pitches to hit with those 2 guys scuffling behind him. So it's going to be one of these things where like they are running up. The Tigers are running up against the lineup you want to run up against, because right now they are all out of sorts. It's been tough to watch, but the thing that they do, they put the ball in play. They're not going to strike out a bunch, and they are running the bases a lot more aggressively now. Part of it is because I think they understand that runs are more difficult to come by. So you're seeing a lot more first to thirds. You're seeing a lot more, second to home on singles. You're seeing a lot more just kind of pushing the envelope just to create runs, because right now they're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark. They're not hitting doubles. They're not slugging. This is a tough matchup for the Astros, because this is, if one thing has held them back all year, it's been this lineup.
Still scoring a +11 run differential, which, is there's not as many teams in the American League that are in the green there as you would think. The Tigers currently are +42 with their 18-10 record, but like the Astros are, you get the most up to date. They are a half game back of the Rangers, who, by the way, lost in a crazy way today, in case anybody didn't see that, or -15 run differential. So like they gotta be doing something right, Chandler. Like they're like the old manufacturer. We've heard this stuff a lot, Cody and I, over the years. The whole manufacturer runs thing, and runs are at a premium. The Tigers are still doing all those things. It just they hit the ball better too. But like they must be doing something right with the record that and where they're sitting and run differential wise.
I mean, they have an outlier game, and they beat the Angels 14-3 in a game earlier this year. So that's the outlier game that they have. The thing is, they're pitching it so well that they're never going to get blown out. There's not going to be a boat race game that they are the losers of, because they have the 4th lowest ERA in baseball right now. Their starting pitching has been very, very good. Their bullpen, Josh Hader, has been maybe the best reliever in baseball, if not the best, the second best. They're pitching it so well that they're staying in all these close games. It's just they're not scoring a ton of runs, and they're not giving a ton of support. I am sad that the Tigers are going to miss both Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown. I can't extract another Hunter Brown Detroit story. I've already done that 4 different times of him pitching either against the Tigers at Comerica Park, something like that. But I don't know if Detroit people know this, but Hunter Brown is like low key, like the best pitcher in baseball now.
Yeah, talk about Hunter Brown, because again, this is not something even Cody and I bring up just like as
is he still spending his off seasons in Detroit?
He is, yeah.
Okay, so he's 0 current members of the Detroit Tigers do that. The best player who spends their offseason in Detroit is a member of the Houston Astros.
Yeah, he spends his off seasons in Detroit because he trains at 2SP in downtown Detroit, where I think a lot of ball players train. But like he and his trainer have this great partnership that they didn't want to break. But yeah, he is completely revolutionized his career. He actually pitched at Kauffman Stadium today, and it was there last year in April where he gave up 9 runs and 11 hits in 2/3 of an inning last year at Kauffman Stadium. It's, if not the worst start in Major League Baseball history, it's top 5. The Astros had plans to demote him to the minor leagues like the next week. and I think there was an injury or something, so he stayed on the roster, made another start, and then on May 5th, he started throwing a sinker. The sinker's not a very good pitch, but it was something he needed to crowd in on right-handed hitters to stop right-handed hitters from diving out and getting everything over the plate. And since he's added that sinker on May 5th, he has the lowest ERA of any starting pitcher in baseball. And that's lower than Tarek Skubal. It's lower than Max Fried. It's lower than Chris Sale. Like, he has now put together 200 innings worth of league-leading ERA ball. And to watch him blossom, to watch the confidence grow has been something. He is sitting 97 now and throwing 99 like with regularity. Like, he threw his changeup he barely throws his changeup. He threw his changeup like 15 times today and got 5 strikeouts on it. The sinker has gotten better. The sinker is now magically 97. Like, he is becoming like appointment television. Like you figure out on the schedule. It's kind of like Skubal. Like, you figure out on the schedule when Skubal's pitching or when Brown's pitching, and you set aside kind of your day because you want to watch them pitch. He's been incredible. It's been really cool to watch him because, I mean, I've covered him from day one, so it's cool. It's been cool to watch him kind of blossom and become what he's become. He was a 5th round pick in 2019 out of Wayne State, and I was just curious, like, did the Tigers like pass on him? Did the Tigers did that draft like not work out for the Tigers? Could they have gotten Hunter Brown at some point? I mean, I'm looking at it now. They drafted Riley Green, Ryan Kreidler, and Bo Brisky in that draft, and Kerry Carpenter. So they did something right in that draft, but Hunter Brown was there if they wanted it.
Those were different times, Chandler.
But I mean, it took the Astros, a team that, you know, was usually very good at drafting. I mean, he slipped to the 5th round, and the scout that actually found him, his signing scout, Hunter Brown was his first draft pick ever signed. And the only reason he found him is he was at a D2 tournament where Wayne State was. He was leaving the tournament and overheard some veteran scouts mention Hunter Brown's name and say, oh, like, I've heard this kid's pretty good. So he decided to stick around, saw Hunter Brown, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Game is full of stories like that. You know, Skubal's got a couple examples of the high school to college recruitment stories. He told this on our episode. You can go listen to that or watch it on YouTube on our feed when Tarek Skubal joined us this offseason. We've kind of done a disservice here, guys. This really is the AJ Hinch episode, and we barely mentioned him. And we know, what's up, AJ, friend of the podcast, but like, he is obviously explicitly tied to both franchises currently and past. But I was curious, Chandler, leading into this series. This is a first because we've done all the AJ returns to Houston. How, you know, like, all those stories have been written, but the angle that has not been written because it doesn't exist until now is now AJ's coming into town with a indisputably better baseball team. Like, I know they won the playoff series last year, but going in, that anecdote that I just shared, no one really thought the Tigers were the better baseball team. And now Houston's going through their stuff again, still good, but the Tigers are hot. They just come off a 10-2 homestand. Like Cody said earlier, they have the best record in the American League. And so now I'm a little curious. If it's going to be as friendly for AJ now that he's like a legitimate threat, because the analogy I'll draw here is everybody still loved Matthew Stafford in Detroit. Like, the first time they played, now it wasn't in Detroit, it was in LA. Everybody rooted for him to win the Super Bowl. The second the Lions got good and there were stakes, all of a sudden it's like, you know what? F that guy. Like, he's actually the enemy. So not an apples to apples comparison, but at the same time, this is a unique thing in the post sign stealing scandal, whatever you want to call it, aspect of AJ Hinch's career going back to Houston.
I think it'd be different if AJ like left on his own accord, or if AJ like decided, like, for whatever reason, like, hey, like, I'd like to manage the Tigers over the Astros. Like, I want to make this conscious decision to leave this budding dynasty.
Who wouldn't?
And
It was not a conscious decision.
and go manage the Tigers. I think when you start talking about the scandal and just sign stealing, like, a lot of fans here still feel like the Astros were made examples of, that it was I think we're past the point of people trying to say they did nothing wrong. I think people acknowledge that the Astros did things wrong, like that they not even break the law, but they broke the rules. I think what people are more upset about, especially seeing how things have gone since, like having questions about leadership, like in the front office now, it's like, man, you fired like the best GM in maybe the city's history, maybe one of the better GMs, like from a strictly on-field standpoint, one of the better GMs in baseball history for something that like you were made an example of. Same thing with AJ Hinch. That's not to say that Dusty Baker or Joe Espada has done a poor job managing. Like I think both of them did very, very well here, but it'd be different if it was something where like AJ left on his own. I still think there's some sympathy when AJ comes to town, because a lot of people wonder what could have been, or what if, or like, what if Mike Fiers never opens his mouth? What if, that's more of the thought, other than like AJ is this traitor. AJ is coming in to like end our dynasty, things like that. I think it's interesting too that like AJ is bringing a team in here that like doesn't have the payroll that the Astros have, like don't have the superstars, don't have the names that the Astros have. So inherently, like AJ is bringing this team in here, and you can viscerally like see the work that a manager and a coaching staff have done on this team to make them good. Like the matchups, like you can see, like, look, like Joe Espada is a very good manager, good tactician, but he's not calling a ton of hit and runs. He's not calling to lay down a bunch of sacrifice bunts, or like he's not playing a ton of matchups, because you know what? If you got Framber Valdez on the mound or Hunter Brown on the mound, you don't have to do much managing. And then you get to the seventh inning and it's like, all right, give the ball to Brian Abreu and Josh Hader, like any team in baseball would do. If Jose Altuve is up in a big spot, or Jordan Alvarez, or, these guys that they have, like there's not a ton of like real difficult like tactician. And I hope Joe doesn't listen to this and think I'm demeaning him, but like AJ is working with less commensurate wise than maybe track record wise than Joe is. So like, or Dusty did prior to Joe. So you are seeing a team that's coming in like with AJ's fingerprints all over it. And I think that to me would irritate me a little more, just because like, man, like we had this guy that like is very clearly, if not one of the better in-game managers in baseball, top 3 or 4, like had this guy, and he left. It was out of our control that he left. So I don't think there's not animosity, and there really wasn't animosity last year in the wild card series when they won. Like I think you saw like he got applauded like both games. Like they didn't boo him. Like, and that's the case when anybody from the 17 team comes back here. Like they don't get booed at all. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a change of ideology. But again, like who knows if they get to Wednesday and they've beaten the crap out of them for 2.5 games, and AJ goes out to make a pitching change on Wednesday, who knows? He could hear some heckles.
I'll never forget in the Uber to the airport in Houston after the wild card series last year, just hearing talk radio, just like melting. Like, why is AJ Hinch not managing the Astros? Alex Cora is still managing the Red Sox. And there's a part of AJ who probably every time he steps foot in that building has to think, what if? What if we didn't break the rules, or what if I wasn't the guy who kind of had to take a symbolic fall, or however you want to phrase it? How many pennants could we have won? Would I be going to Cooperstown? Instead, he's had to take a very altered trajectory, a much longer path. I've said a million times, I think post-suspension, AJ viewed it as important to almost do it the hard way, right? And that's definitely what he has done, and I think it was validating for him. He would never admit it, but I think it was validating for him to beat the Astros. And I think it's validating for him now to roll into town with a team that looks to be legitimately good. And it is a team built in his image a little bit, a team that's improved steadily over the years. They're not going to bunt or hit and run. That's not AJ's style, but they play the matchups. He still manages the crap out of every single game. And I used to think AJ didn't like going back to Houston, or hearing the questions, like getting asked about the scandal, or getting asked just what's it like to be back in, Minute Maid / Daikin Park. I think that's going to be different now, because I think he can have a little more pride, stick his chest out a little bit more. I think he's almost going to be welcoming that. It's going to be a little bit of a humble brag for AJ to go in there with a team that he has kind of helped build over the last 4 to 5 years, and now appears to be legit.
Yeah, didn't he say something the other day? Didn't he get asked about like winning a big series or beating like a big opponent? Didn't he like turn the question on the guy and say like, why don't other teams get asked about beating
when is
us?
it?
Like,
When is it going to be validating to beat us?
Right. Like, I think that's the tone he'll probably take here. It's like, I mean, I don't think he'll ever be like mean spirited about it, but he can come here and say like, I mean, we beat these guys on the biggest stage. Like, we don't need to talk about like how gratifying it is for me to be back here. Like, I mean, this is just old hat now. Like, and I mean, I think AJ, like, I mean, obviously, you know, Cody, like he still has roots here. Like, I believe he still has a house in the Woodlands. Like, I mean, still, one of his daughters may still be in school here. I'm not sure where they're at and trajectory wise, but like he still has roots here. And I think that may enter his mind too. It's like, man, I wouldn't have had to uproot my family. We could have really settled down here. We could have really like called Houston our forever home. And now that's not the case. And I wonder how much it's more maybe of a personal, like family thing than maybe more like on field. Cause like, I think we have to remember like baseball players in general are wired to be like transient people, to be like, you don't stay like, unless you're Jose Altuve or Miguel Cabrera, like you don't stay in one place for forever. Like you move, it's the business of the sport. It's the business of baseball. So he had that rare opportunity to maybe have that here, to have a place where he could have been entrenched as, you know, a legend. And, you know, for right or wrong, he always will be. Like the World Series title is, they're not taking it away. Like they still have the trophy. They still have the rings. It's still in the record books. Like he won the first World Series title for the Houston Astros. He managed the Houston Astros' first World Series title winning team. Like his legacy is secured here. Now there's a lot of layers and nuance to it once you start talking about it, but his legacy in Houston is cemented. And I think he can come and know that on top of having this team to come in here and, you know, this is a better team. Like they are coming in here as the favorites. And I don't think that's something we thought we would say maybe this soon in AJ's tenure.
No. And part of the story too, in terms of what could have been, is the Chicago White Sox piece of it. Like that was the team to manage at the time. And they went in a different direction. He ends up
talk about alternate timelines.
and look where the franchises are now compared to then. Obviously, Houston has continued to have success, but I did want to pick your brain a little bit here as we're about 40 minutes into this podcast, Chandler, is that obviously a lot of moves in the offseason that the Astros made, some with short-term gain, some with long-term gain in mind. What about Framber Valdez? Like, this is a guy that's, let's see, I got it in front of me. He's about to he'll turn 32 this year. He's in the last year of his contract. We talked about Hunter Brown. He's been, you know, supplanted as the ace of the team. What are the conversations around him right now, both externally and internally?
I mean, he's going to follow the same path that every one of these other homegrown guys did. They're going to let him play out, and then he's going to go into free agency, and there's a very, 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 very high likelihood he will be playing somewhere other than Houston next season, just because this is how the Astros operate. They don't go into the realm of numbers and years and dollars that Framber will want. As you know, you look at the Max Fried deal. I don't think he reaches that number, but he's right there. I mean, you talk about left-handed starting pitching, like he's going to be the best left-handed starting pitcher on the market next year. He's going to be, if not, I mean, he'll be in the top 3 or 4 free agent starters available. You know, they considered, they listened on him this past winter, along with trading Kyle Tucker. However, the reason they didn't trade Framber this winter is because they didn't believe, and you can look it up. This guy he hadn't thrown 200 innings every year, but he's thrown at least 190, 195 every year. He's been a full-time starter. This is the epitome of a durable workhorse, like throws posts, and they did not believe that they could replicate that volume of innings with what they had internally. So that's why they opted to trade Kyle Tucker over Framber Valdez. But they listened on Framber both last winter and the winter before. if they are somehow completely out of contention at the trade deadline, which I don't envision, just given how weak the American League is, he automatically becomes an ideal trade target for anyone if they make him available at the deadline. But they're not going to do that unless they are completely out of it. The time to trade him, if they wanted to recoup any value, if they wanted to get value from him before he leaves, the time to trade him was this past winter, and they decided not to. So, they'll stick it out with him. He can be enigmatic at times. He's very much he's done a lot of work with a sports psychiatrist to really get the mental side of things squared away with him. And sometimes it's still a struggle for him. Sometimes you'll see him, bark at umpires. You'll see him react to an error behind him or a soft hit, or he's notoriously bad at fielding his position. So a lot of things can kind of snowball on him, but he's found a way to, get his breathing right, regulate his breathing, settle himself, and become like a true workhorse. And, if not for Hunter Brown, the ace of this team. So, who knows if the Tigers need a starter at the deadline and the Astros are 15 under 500, tell Scott Harris to call Dana Brown, because they'll have the best rental guy available.
Yeah, in a weird way, I think the Fromber situation could be a little bit of a roadmap, or depending on how it ends up, a cautionary tale for what the Tigers are soon going to face with Tarik Skubal. Skubal is maybe even a tier above Fromber, but you have a premier left-handed starter on a good team. So what do you do? Skubal's hard to trade, but the better, if he continues to pitch this well, he's only going to be harder to re-sign. Chandler, I feel like you've kind of been on the front end for a while saying like the Astros might have to trade Fromber, and they didn't do it, but like you said, they did listen. No one wants to hear that the Tigers might have to trade Skubal, but like, especially as we head into this, next offseason, it's just going to be a hard reality they might have to face. And if the Astros let Fromber walk and give him the qualifying offer or whatever, I mean, that may be how things end with Skubal in Detroit. But there's a little bit of a parallel there too, even.
I'd say it's more of a parallel with Hunter Brown at the moment, because Hunter Brown and Tarik Skubal have one thing in common, their representation. So Hunter Brown hired Scott Boras this winter. You know what that means. So there will be no extension unless they are blown out of the water with an offer. So I think the parallel there is more kind of Brown, like, especially where they're like, how many more ARB years does Skubal have?
He's under team control for 2 more seasons or so, right, this year and next year.
So Hunter's 1 year back. So he's got this year and then 2 more years. So I think that's the more apt parallel, is because, there's already fans that are fretting about, they're not going to be able to extend him. And I think they've accepted that, with just given how the Astros operate and the Boras factor. So I think it'd be really stupid to trade Tarik Skubal, just like I think it'd be really stupid to trade Hunter Brown. I was on board with them trading Framber Valdez this past winter, because I thought they had enough starting pitching depth that they could have done what they deemed that they thought they couldn't do, which was get the volume of innings. Instead, they traded the best player on their team, and they wonder why they have the 5th lowest OPS in baseball, because when you trade the best player on your team, that tends to happen. So, I think so have they even tried to extend Skubal? Aside from just doing the cursory,
hard to say how much of a serious effort it was. I think every negotiation has to start somewhere. I don't think there's been like a full court press to bring him back.
And Scott Harris isn't dumb either. Like he knows the situation too. So and the Astros do too. Like the Astros had a chance, and what the Astros will kick themselves for. Hunter Brown was very, very, very interested in an extension last spring, not this past spring, last spring, when he had a 4.6 ERA in 2.5 big league seasons, to the point where he switched representation to not Scott Boras, another agency, midway through spring training in hopes that an extension could get done. It never got done. Now we are where we are. So they had a golden opportunity to lock in Hunter Brown before he became real Hunter Brown. And that's something that I think they will regret for a long time, because the way this thing is going. I'm not saying that they're going downhill, and I'm not saying the window is slamming shut, but it's not the same super team it was. And the payroll is not, I mean, Jim Crane spends money, but certainly not in the ways that it would take to retain him, to retain Kyle Tucker, to retain Framber Valdez. So, and they have the worst, if not the worst farm system in baseball, bottom three. So they have nothing coming either to help replenish and be sustainable, the S word, in a cost-controlled manner. So they may have no choice at some point, but they're going to kick themselves for not getting Hunter Brown extended, 2 years ago when he was really ready, willing, and able to do it.
Yeah, the school bowl aspect of it is one that we kind of feels wrong to talk about it today when he's so lights out, but it is something that does hang over Tigers fans' heads a little bit, because this iteration of ownership and front office ship, I know I made that the word up, doesn't really have a history of doling out payroll skyrocketing contracts. Like the one major extension that Scott Harris has done was with Colt Keith, who puts him, it was like what, 30 something million over 8 years, Cody, something like that.
He's only guaranteed 28.
Yeah. So it's like,
but to Chandler's point here, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a whole other thing that we'll probably talk about all next winter, but like, they could offer him $2 billion. Scott Boras might still say, I want to take this to free agency. Let's see if the Yankees will beat it,
Right.
I think it's more of a Boras thing than a Tigers thing.
The only way that Tarek Skubal or Hunter Brown are signing extensions are if their respective teams make them the sort of offer that like just blows away any possible thing that they could get in free agency, like at all. And still, even then, Scott Boras would probably advise them anyway to wait for the open market when you have 30 teams that can bid on you. Now, anytime we talk about this, I do have to have this caveat. We talk about Scott Boras not liking pre-arb extensions, not liking pre-free agency extensions. The Astros do employ 2 players that have signed. Jose Altuve signed 2 of them. Lance McCullers signed 1 of them, pre-free agency extensions while being represented by Scott Boras. So it has happened before. Like, it can happen, but the through line in those 2 was that Lance and Altuve instructed Scott Boras, like, I don't want to play anywhere else. I want to be here. And Scott, at the end of the day, he does do what his clients ask him to do. So he got those extensions worked out. So I guess for Tigers fans, you can feel heartened. It can happen. Like if Tarek Skubal goes to Scott Boras and says, I don't want to play anywhere else but Detroit, make it work, that can happen. Same thing with Hunter Brown here, but I get the feeling that's not how it's going to turn out.
So just create a budding dynasty. It might be your best chance to extend.
That's it. That's all it takes. All right. A lot of fun. Anything else that we need to hit on? Did we miss anything, guys? I felt like we were pretty thorough here. We're almost an hour in.
Does Colt Keith still play first base?
All right. So the short answer
How much
on
time
that,
do we have here?
the short answer on that is Colt Keith is more positionless than having a position. He actually hasn't played like 4 games. Is it, Cody? Starts at first base because Spencer Torkelson realized he was
first baseman again, baby.
Realized he was a 1-1 and he had a good defensive weekend. I thought, Cody, with some tough plays in there.
It's almost more impressive than his offense. Like a defense is just less of a fluid thing. You don't just wake up and go from being a negative defender to a positive defender. I feel like that's what Torkelson has done. He's looked really good at first. To go back to the Colt Keith question, Colts was the beneficiary of the Tigers signing Gleyber Torres, in theory, moving on from Spencer Torkelson. Now he's really the one wearing the Spencer Torkelson reclamation because they're paying Gleyber to play second. Glaber's playing well.
Gleyber does not want to play third. Will not play third. That's me.
That hasn't actually come up with the Tigers, but that was a storyline in his free agency. Colt is not going to play first. He's not going to play second. I mean, he's going to mix in at those 2 positions. He can DH some, but Gary Carpenter's DHing some. He just had a scare with his hamstring, so he's been DHing a little bit more. And he just hasn't been that productive, although I think we're starting to see some signs. He's been pulling the ball a little bit more. I'm still not like big picture worried about Colt Keith, but now it's almost a matter of just like, how do you get him at bats? It's become a kind of a strange situation.
getting squeezed out a little bit.
Yeah,
And
a
then
lot of it.
And then which one of these anonymous relievers I've never heard of is the closer?
What is a closer?
A closer, like a door, like what?
Stop.
You know what I thought today? The Yankees officially like demoted Devin Williams from the
Yeah.
closer role. I was like, maybe this is just more AJ Hinch brilliance. You never have to revoke the closer role from someone if you just don't say it officially. Tommy Kahnle seems to be the guy getting the most ninth inning reps right now with a little bit of Will Vest mixed in there.
Is Kahnle still throwing like changeups every pitch?
A lot of changeups. He hasn't thrown 56 in a row yet. He does have a fastball. He's used it a little bit, but the guy throws a lot of changeups.
You know, you could have had like a World Series winning closer with the Detroit Tigers if he would have said yes. It's always something about former 2017 and 2022 Astros saying no to the Detroit Tigers. A complete a testament of their offseason. Ryan Presley, good reliever for the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, I forgot about that storyline, man. That seems like a million years ago.
Somehow the Tigers have constructed a really good bullpen with some guys that no one outside of Detroit knows.
It's a full faith thing from the fans. Anything pitching related that the coaching staff and the front office does. They seem not. They do have misses. Cody mentioned earlier, Kenta Maeda, but it's not bad 1,000. But when it comes to bullpen guys, especially, no one gives any sort of pushback like at all. And of course with AJ, like anything AJ does is like he'll say something, but then his actions are like actually the kind of contradictory to what the statement is. So it's like, who's the closer? I don't believe in closers. And meanwhile, like last year, like Jason Foley got every single closing opportunity the first like 2 months of the year, right? So like that's one of my favorite AJ-isms. It's like, oh, I don't think that way. And then he just literally manages that way.
I will say I'm excited to see Casey Mize pitch, just given like everything he has been through. And yeah, it'd be fun to watch him because like, did he even make the wild card? He was even on the playoff roster.
He was on the wild card roster, but didn't pitch, and then he was off the DS roster, if I'm remembering that correctly. Maybe the other way around.
What a comeback.
He's looked legit. If his splitter keeps working, he's going to have a terrific season.
I'm excited to watch it.
All right, Chandler. For the Tiger Territory listeners, where can they find your work?
At The Athletic, alongside Cody Stavenhagen, and at Chandler_Rome on whatever Elon is calling his social media app.
And you can follow and subscribe to Crush City Territory, if you so choose and want to get the Houston perspective after the Tigers series, or just in general. Chandler's a fun guy. If you want to listen to him, I wouldn't say that's a bad decision. You can follow Cody on X or Twitter or whatever it's being called these days at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran _Steckley. Tiger Territory is the podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. 5-star review, like, and subscribe if you feel so.
Wait, I have one more question. Have the Tigers turned the corner?
They had turned the corner. They made the playoffs.
I think making the playoffs counts.
And they officially turned the corner. And so we had to come up with a new gimmick. And now they are just territory. So glad to have made that change at a good time. It would have been awkward if they were still rebuilding when we had.
Still doesn't do well in SEO. You type in like Tigers podcast, we don't come up. So
we got to work on that. We got to get on our social media influencer game a little bit. But if you follow us, that'll help us out a lot. So for Chandler Rome, Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.